Hello, welcome back to the Gothic Literary Society. My name is Charlotte Leisman, and today is Horror Dark Fantasy Friday. So that is the Friday somewhere around the middle of the month, close to Friday the 13th, when we feature something from either the horror or the dark fantasy genre. So today we are talking about my favorite work of horror ever, and that would be Summer of Night by Dan Simmons. So this book is actually very surprising because it is easily as good as, possibly better, than The Stand by Stephen King or the Passage trilogy by Justin Cronin, and yet very few people seem to be aware of this book. So we're going to talk about why this book is so great and why you're going to want to pick it up. So let's get into it. So on the surface, this book is about childhood. So it is about the beauty of childhood, and yet also mirrored on the other side the vulnerability that only children can represent. So the book takes place over the summer of 1960. It features very much an era in which less technology meant closer friendships and perhaps even more freedom. So the young boys are very close to one another. They are out building secret forts and going on bike rides through the country and exploring everything, and yet they are very aware that something is stalking them. So shortly after the book begins, school is out for the summer, and their school building, which we discover fairly early in the book, was built under some very troubling circumstances, which we'll discover more about as the book progresses. That school is set to be boarded up and never used again. Well, unfortunately, the boys realize very quickly that something evil has taken up residence in that school and is out to get them, to destroy them and their families. So from that point on, it is a race to the finish for these 5 young boys to rescue themselves and their own town from this evil that wants them for any number of reasons, which we will not give away. So there are several things about this book which are so incredibly wonderful, and the first of these is the environment. Simmons manages to, amidst constant tension, and he really does create an environment of unrelenting tension. He still manages to pit that against this backdrop of a very idyllic time and place. So we have like summer parties and small town movies in the park. So it's almost an ode to a bygone era, and it's a very pleasing one. It, despite even the horror in the book, it really makes you want to be there. So it's very immersive in that respect and very, very enjoyable. Second of all, of course, the characters. So these 5 young boys are extraordinarily unique, different, yet they embody a lot of the traits we would expect in boys that are 12 years old. And yet they're the kinds of characters who are so endearing that you just miss them after you finish reading the book. That is something I don't say very often about very many books, but he wrote a subsequent book. I didn't like it as much. It's called Children of Night, and in that book, one of the characters from Summer of Night makes a reappearance, and there's also a reference in that book to his childhood friends, all of the characters who were in Summer of Night. And it was interesting because when he makes that reference back to this book, I felt this great pang of loss from having put down this book and walked away from these 5 great characters. So it's really that good. He is just a master at crafting just unforgettable, really loving characters. And of course, there's also not just boys. There is a very kick-ass girl in the town. She is something else. I won't tell you much about her because she's just, you have to experience her. And she's one of those girls who's very rough about the edges, but I just knew I loved her instantly. So she plays a very interesting role in the plot from start to finish, and I really enjoyed seeing her character. And then, of course, the adults. So Simmons does just a wonderful job of portraying a lot of the nuances of family dynamics and other adult dynamics, but definitely a lot with respect to families and all of the complexity and the good things and the difficult things that come along with family. So he does a wonderful job at crafting characters. Third of all, of course, there's the plot. So the plot itself is very interesting. There are several plot twists, of course, and big ones. And He definitely maintains the tension from start to finish, and yet I would say this book is not so much about being twisty as it is about this really masterful unraveling of this mystery. So he manages to reveal the truth of what happened in the past, and with a very keen eye for timing. So that timing just keeps the pacing and the tension right at the right point from start to finish. And it's a pretty thick book, so I've forgotten how long it was. Very weighty book, and it is just unputdownable, as we would call it. And then there's the theme. So the theme, I would definitely agree with the industry's classification of horror. This is a theme about something that someone did in the past, and those consequences are manifesting in these horrific actions that are happening to the boys and to the town today in the present day. That is definitely a horror theme. So completely concur with that one. And then also the use of the tropes in the book. So you're going to find things in this book such as a haunted old schoolhouse, of course, and it's a big one. It's not just a small schoolhouse. A haunted school, definitely cornfields at night. You're going to find an old ghost of a soldier who is stalking them for some reason. It's hard to say until the end of the book why he's stalking them. And then also this rendering van, this crazy old guy who drives this rendering van full of decaying animals. So if those sounds like tropes that you would enjoy, definitely is enjoyable. And Simmons' use of those tropes is definitely very consistent with the horror genre. So he uses them very much to foreshadow and to build up the tension towards the various elements that he's revealing throughout the book. So they're not used so much to make the theme an intangible theme manifest, which we would expect in the Gothic genre. Instead, he's using them very consistently with the horror genre to play a very ominous and oppressive role that really builds towards the revealing of why these children are being haunted by these entities. So if you love books that are a mixture of horror and nostalgia, books in which children have to face seemingly insurmountable evil, and books that are chock full of characters that you'll never want to leave, this is definitely a book that I would recommend picking up. If you have read it, let me know below and let me know what you love about it. So that's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell. That way you'll be notified every time I post a new video. I release videos on Fridays, so until next time, stay undead, my friends.